27th OpenJ9 community call. As always, please add your name and affiliation to the list of attendees, just so we know who's been attending the call. And then let's jump into the agenda. So I'll pause here to give people an option to add anything to the agenda. We can either add it in now and discuss right off the bat, or feel free to tag things to the any other business section at the end of the agenda. Does anyone have anything they want to jump into right away? Right. We don't have a lightning talk scheduled, so I am looking for volunteers for that. If you'd like to give a lightning talk to the OpenJ9 community, please either contact me on Slack or write something into this agenda, and we'll get something scheduled in the upcoming weeks. All right, so end user issues. Let's take a look at the recent ones that have come in. I see a couple of discussion items around JVM CI, around some Graal benchmarks. So I know in the past when we've looked at JVM CI, the license has been incompatible. So that may be a blocker there. Oh, my audio is cutting out. Apologies. Not sure that there's much I can do about that right now. If my audio is bad, please let me know via chat, and we'll keep going from there. So the Graal, the JVM CI support has run into issues with licensing in the past. I believe the license on the JVM CI code itself is pure GPL, so we'd have to work through how we could interact with that, or work with the OpenJDK community to get the license on that to include the class path exception. I haven't looked at the benchmark, so I can't speak to the performance question here, but I know that VJ has been tagged in that, so some discussions can continue there as well. Are there any other items here that need discussion today? Pausing so everyone has a chance to scan through the list and see if there's anything that needs to be called out. All right, then we'll go back to the agenda. Reminder about help wanted issues. If you run across something minor, that would be a good place for somebody new to get started with the project. Please open an issue for it and tag it as help wanted or beginner, and we can use those to onboard people into the project. Okay, we'll take a look at the download trends from the Adopt project. So we see that the overall trends have been leveling off here. Take a look just at the OpenJ9. We see we had a nice spike over the last couple of days, but the trend has dropped off again. So I'm not sure what's responsible for that, but there's definitely we had a nice spike and now a drop back to more regular download levels. We take a look at the hotspot download levels over the same period. They had a similar spike, but they have continued on a slower upward trend. So we'll have to figure out if there's anything that can account for that right now. Is there anything anyone wanted to call out about these download trends? And we'll head back and we'll take a look at our releases. The 0.24 release, I believe we are complete at that point and builds are up on the Adopt OpenJDK website.
The OpenJ9 release was completed, yes.
Right, and then we are looking at the 0.25 release for Java 16, where we have a code split of January 31st. So we're sort of rapidly coming up on that. And if I open up the project plan, I see that we still have 61 items open in this list, which is unlikely to be completed by Friday of this week. So looking for feedback on whether we need to move that code split date, whether these issues should be double delivered, or if there's a number of these that are sort of close to finishing out that we expect to close out before that pretty first deadline.
From the VM perspective, we have a few issues that are close to being complete. That being said, the Friday deadline is very tight, so I think pushing the deadline date back 1 week would be helpful and would minimize the double delivery that we would have to do.
Okay. Thanks, Toby. Any other comments, opinions on this? Dimitri, does that make a difference for the GC team?
I don't think we have any outstanding issue for Java 16.
Okay. Is there anything you would be holding off that would cause you to delay putting things in until we make that code split?
We have mode changed for balanced. We're waiting this thing, but we could add it just even slight risk that something will be broken in testing. We did this testing before, but either way is good.
Just looking if Daryl is on the call. Don't see him. Peter, is there any other concerns or areas you're aware of that we should be discussing before moving this date?
I'm happy to move it.
So if we were going to move it, that means second. Pushing that date to February 7th. Toby, do you think that gives you sufficient time for the items that are on the VM plate?
Yeah, I think that gives us time to address the major issues.
Okay. So I've adjusted the milestone 1 date then to be immediately after that. Though that does bring us to a topic that's gone on the OpenJ9 mailing list and has been raised on our Slack as well, and that's the note from the Eclipse Foundation that we are no longer able to promote builds from the Adopt OpenJDK project or anywhere that provides non-TCK'd binaries. So we may have to do some updates to our release processes and figure out how we're going to make this work, given the goals of providing milestone builds and getting those out to our community ahead of time. We'll have to work through how exactly our processes are going to have to change now that we can't promote builds from the Adopt OpenJDK project. And eventually from the Eclipse Adoptium project. Any other comments or discussion around the 0.25 release? On to our general business sections. Do we have an update from Adopt? I know Shelley stated she won't be able to attend today due to a conflict.
I can give a brief update. Not much to say. We spent the majority of the time since we last had a call getting the 0.24 release out and generally the quarterly update for the JDKs, and that's kept us all pretty occupied for, as I say, the last week or so.
Okay. Thank you to everyone involved in that project for all the help with getting binaries out since the start of the project.
I just want to give everyone a heads up that we're converting the system test from iteration-based to time-based. The PR is under review. Once it's in, the first version from the grinder test so far, it will increase the execution time. We will monitor a build and tune them if needed. But they will switch. So you will see the test will end up with the suffix of underscore 5 minutes or, those type of names.
Lan, what's the reason for the change?
Oh, we just want to catch more bugs. As for iteration build, some of them are not running long enough to actually warm up JIT. So we actually switch them to the time-based.
Plus, we have the opposite problem where some tests are running for 2 hours, which is unnecessary in a nightly build. Is there any outlook for then when that would be delivered, Lan? Good that we pushed back the branch date, I think.
I think we're pretty close. I think MassBat just need one last cleanup and then we should be ready to go. So I will guess sometime this week.
Okay, sounds good. So it'll be in well before we do the branch. We'll have a chance to evaluate if it finds any problems we haven't already seen.
Anyone tested these new workloads against the hotspot builds before we got them live?
Not yet, but I will ask to run a hotspot. I think so far we're running on OpenJ9 11 and 8 on Windows and Linux, I believe. I
don't expect there'd be much, but there is a possibility that defects just jump out with the extra workloads. So.
Yeah.
Lan, is there thoughts on how to tune these for some of the other systems as well? I'm just wondering about the AArch systems in particular, whether they are.
If it's time-based, Dan,
Yeah.
will just run for that amount of time.
Yeah,
the danger becomes that the workloads won't be consistent anymore necessarily from one run to the next. So on a small layout 64, that will run fewer iterations of tests than say on a system 390. So, if there's a failure in one place and not in another, you're not necessarily comparing like with like anymore. It's been a problem for many years. Find more bugs or be consistent, and we go back and forth.
Yeah, I just recall many years ago when we had time-based testing, we had issues with test overruns, tests being marked as failed for not completing within the required amount of time.
The workloads themselves are still much reduced from those days down. There's much fewer threads running. I think that was the main culprit then.
Okay.
Do you know if the STF framework registers overruns, or will it just keep going until the test finishes?
What it does with the time-based is it simply stops putting new tests in when when the time is reached. And then I think it's got one parameter which is called the inactivity limit. If it doesn't get any output at all from the Java process which it started, then at that time it will say it seems to be completely hung and not even putting standard out.
Okay, so if we find problems, we can tune it.
Yeah, so it's, yes. That was
And
one of the issues with the lambda load tests that I was looking at.
And then also we will introduce something similar as a JDK customer. So we're going to introduce a system custom target where user be able to pass in the parameter in the grinders they needed so that they can run whatever time limit they want or even switch to the iteration base. That's the plan. It's going to come after we deliver this change.
Slan? Are there any other adopt updates? Taking a look at the infrastructure update. Adam?
Hey, so there's those two items there that have been lingering around for a while. So Joe has come up with some PRs for both of them. So I think those should be resolved by next meeting.
That's great news.
Don't think, no, there is a, sorry, I should have added, there's a DNS issue with the Z-Linux machines, which the Z-Linux people were aware of, and they were working on a solution, and that was yesterday. I don't think we've heard anything since. I think Pete was saying this morning that there was some network-related tests failing on some of those machines, but I don't know if it's related or not.
Yeah, so there's some MX Bean tests that are probably network related in that they connect back to the same machine. And those tests were hanging. So I've disabled the two Ubuntu 18 Linux machines so we don't get hangs. I mean, they were working fine up until last night, so.
So maybe it sounds like they're related.
Yeah.
But I think Joe's temp fix yesterday was to the other set of machines that. So it's kind of confusing, unless it's the same root cause but presented in different ways. I don't know. So we've disabled the two machines for now, and we'll see what the other team comes back with for a fix.
Okay, that's good. Anything else that we should discuss around RHEL engine and machines? Moving to the any other business section. Babneet, is there an update on the transition to OpenJDK method handles?
Hey Dan, so I think I've been working on adding support for OpenJ9 method handles for the 0.25 release, and Jack, Lee Kuhn, and Nazim have been working on the OpenJDK method handles. Last I talked to them, the JIT team were making progress on the performance side, and Jack was making progress on getting his method handle native changes complete and resolving test-related failures from his method handle native code. This sums up the update for OpenJDK method handles. Back to you, Dan.
Thanks, Babneet. In terms of the CMake migration, Devin, do we have an update?
Yeah, I mean, Sharon can probably talk better about the AIX stuff because it doesn't really divide easily. So she's been kind of taking the lead on that, and I've been helping where I can. In terms of the ZOS stuff, there's a weird issue I had where some of the CMake stuff for OMR was working on my machine I was developing on, but it doesn't seem to be working properly on the DI machines. So I'm tracking that down. It seems to be a kind of weird edge case in CMake itself. I think I have a workaround that seems to be working. That I've updated my PR now, and so I should be able to get that in and working now.
Was there anything else for the JDK 16 work? Any other pieces that had to be ported forward for the make files or to the extensions repos?
I don't recall anything, but I will kick off another build and make sure that's all good.
So there was a draft PR to fix Windows that was opened middle of December.
Let me pull that up.
It was actually opened on the headstream.
Right.
And Keith made a comment about path handling on Windows being changed, but I think that's only in the headstream. So probably your changes are still needed for JDK 16.
It seems like that would be the case. I will look at that now.
And then there was one other thing which is totally unrelated. Our dynamic support. It seems like we could turn that on. I'm just wondering if you want to create a PR for that, or do you want me to go ahead and create a PR for that?
Yeah, I can create that PR. It's yeah.
Great, thanks.
Sharon, is there an update on the XL Clang?
Yeah, I put the update down kind of where the Mixref stuff, but I can just go over it quickly. So yep, that's in progress. I've duplicated all the options based off of what we're doing for UMA, and I was just working through handling some incompatibilities with some options that CMake was providing by default that's actually incompatible with XL Clang, and Devin was helping me out with that. So yep, just making more progress there. And yep, nothing major so far, just working through making it compatible.
Do you expect that to land in time for the new split date of February 7th?
Yes, yeah, I was targeting the original split date, so that just gives me a bit more time.
Excellent. Sharon? Anything else on the CMake discussion? Marius, do you have an update on the Helm and the operator discussion? I don't see Marius on the call today, so we'll skip over that.
Yeah, for the record, I was hoping to add that to the release notes as something we were including with the 024 release. So if that comes along, we can do that at a later time.
I think, looking at the notes here, we had been aiming for JDK 16, so it would be the 025 release.
Okay. I thought there was already a PR created. Yeah, but maybe it didn't target 24.
Yeah, we'll have to follow up with Marius. Just a reminder that the next MicroJIT meeting is on January 28th. Sharon, was there anything else on the compressed and default?
No, nothing new. I guess the pull requests were merged, so that work is now complete. So just the XL Clang JDK 16 stuff is the only thing that needs to be done.
So basically, we could turn on mixed builds now for any version that's using CMake, like for example, JDK 11?
Yes, that should be fine at this point. The verbose libraries have been split, so that's all good to go. And any known issues have been addressed. I guess the only platform is ZOS for it is not available yet just because it's not available for CMake. I'll have to add that in once that is available.
Yeah, so how do we turn on mixed builds? It's the change to what we're building. We build different specs.
Yes. So I can point you, or I can link the spec names that are used for mixed builds.
Just that's underscore mixed or something, isn't it?
Could you repeat that?
Alternatively, we could change the defaults.yaml to specify the right configuration option by default.
I think they're already in the defaults YAML.
Yes.
I'm thinking maybe all I have to do is change the nightly build to build the mixed variants instead of the regular variants.
I think
At some point, we're going to want to make the default mixed. Is that not right?
Right. So I think that'll have to wait until everything's changed over, in my opinion. So yeah, it's just underscore mixed. So if you just adjust all your specs in your launch to say underscore mixed, then you can get rid of the XL ones. I'll do the same for the internal build for 11.
And I'm assuming that once we switch to mixed, then we can remove this underscore mixed, right, in the spec?
I think once we have all the builds over, then we can adjust the variable file so that mixed is the default, and we can remove the mixed specs.
Okay.
Right now, 16 can't move, only an 8 can't move, so only 11 could move.
Right.
Yeah.
We will have to ask the adopt people to turn their 11 builds on as well to have that extra config option for once we're ready.
Are we going to want to keep, the equivalent of the default build today? I don't know, call it small instead of XL or something like that. Right.
I don't know that we have the machine capacity to test both in a nightly build.
Well, I'm not saying it's something we need to do imminently. It's just is that the plan?
I think
So today people can download, with the default build, and it's going to be a little smaller than the mixed build. And so people working, like in Docker containers that don't need the large memory model might benefit from the smaller space consumption.
But they just use a different option when they're running configure correctly, correct?
Oh, no, I'm not. The footprint of the JDK in the image will be a little bit smaller in the current build versus the XL, or not the XL, but versus the mixed build.
But I don't know that anybody's going to build all the different variants, but if somebody wanted to build their own, they can just choose which one they want to build.
I think we would be further ahead.
Today it adopt builds regular and XL builds. So rephrasing my question, in the future, do we imagine we'll build mixed builds and what today is the default?
I would prefer to see mixed builds be the default way to go.
Yes.
And
but for people that are
for people who want the smaller build or a smaller package, that we provide a JLink plugin that's able to strip out one or the other.
Oh yeah, okay. JLink is a reasonable approach to that. Sure.
But ultimately, that becomes the decision of whoever's building the packages.
We can always put those specs in the variable file if someone wants to do personal builds like that.
Adam, I see you've added a new topic here, the macOS GP test failures.
Yep.
Can
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good, good. In hash test, I've raised the details. I just wanted to make sure that that had been seen and that anybody who had insight into that could contribute. Specifically, this issue seems to have been seen 2 years ago on JDK 11, and it was solved by adding DYLD library path onto the test lib path for OS X runs in OpenJ9 settings.meg. But it looks like that file isn't there anymore, and I'm having difficulty finding where that functionality was moved to. So if anyone has flash of inspiration, recollection, do please raise your hand or put comments in the chat. That's all I had to say.
Thanks, Adam. Is there any other business that we need to discuss today? All right, then we will call it here for this week, and we'll meet again on February the 3rd. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.